Welcome to
Fika for Life.
My name is Edward Thomas. My co-host is...
My name is Linh.
Really? Hey, Lynn.
Hi.
How do you like my new voice?
It's Kermit.
Oh, no. Kermit is like, oh, Miss Piggy. No, wait.
Yeah, that one.
Oh, Miss Piggy. I really like Miss Piggy. And she's like, but Kermit.
This episode is not so cheerful. I don't know why you started like
I know.
this.
Because you said Kermit. And you made me think about the Muppets. I love Kermit and Miss Piggy.
You started to be like, and then I'm like, okay.
I know, because I think that's how we deal with grief sometimes.
Yes.
Sometimes when we're dealing with grief, we tend to joke and we say things because we think it helps us to deal with grief better, because that's what we're going to talk about.
Yeah.
Grief.
So
recently you were at a funeral.
Yes.
Yeah.
My first funeral ever.
Really?
From someone who I actually knew.
Okay. And it was your friend that you actually visited her. You had a chance to visit her in Germany.
Yeah. So my friend Anna and my other friend Jule. So we three were quite close friends, and we went to school together. Jule and Anna even longer way back. So I think from the age of 9 maybe. They've been to the same school and friends. And I've met them when we were maybe 15 or 16. But that means that I have known them half there in our lives, because we're in our 30s now.
Wow. You guys are old, man.
No, we're not. You talked about humor, and we will always be joking. We were always so cheerful and talking and laughing and just making stupid jokes. Mostly you and me. Like they visited us just after I moved to Sweden.
Okay, wow.
And you and me, we were pretty dumb.
Yeah.
So and Anna and her now husband, they were always like our parents, because they were always really like more serious and more like calm. Yeah. And we were like, hey, let's do the penis game. And like, so the game was about like.
This was before Lynn became a Christian, just to let you know.
No, you start saying penis, and then the other one has to say it a bit louder, and then the end of the game, it's like 2 people just screaming penis on the street. So and they would be like just looking away, and they would be just so Anna would be just like the person, she would not join in that game, but you and me, we
Germany.
would. No, we did that in Uppsala outside of Polishuset.
No, really?
Yes.
That's
whatever.
So embarrassing.
So we've been really good friends the past 2-3 years in high school, and then we graduated, and they helped me actually move, so pack my stuff. So my husband's parents came and picked me up, and they told me, because I wasn't there, I was going with my parents-in-law, so they were saying how they sat in the car and were just crying their balls out because I was leaving and they were still there.
Wow, that's so sweet.
And they were so sad, and they talked about that. And then we actually saw each other every year except for COVID, but we saw each other every year. So I've lived in Sweden for over 12 years, and every time I went back, we made sure we would see each other and catch up and things like that. And I think the last big thing we did was her wedding, and it fell on my birthday.
Wow.
In 2017.
Okay.
So they got married. So Anna and her husband Daniel, they got married in 2017. And that was the last big thing. And then it was COVID, obviously. And we always talked about how they would come and visit me again, but it never happened. But then last summer in 2022, we contacted her and like, hey, let's catch up, blah, blah. And she would always like avoid. We would always say, hey, how are you? And she was like just asking us how we were, and like not really saying much. But we didn't think about it. No. We weren't like, oh, why is she never saying things?
I mean, you guys are quite young too, so you wouldn't expect so.
No, but the thing was like, I think the last thing in spring was that she was like, oh, she's going to get checked out because she felt like she had long COVID, because she got COVID and then she just felt sick all the time, or like ill or tired. And we're like, yeah, you should get checked that out because you're young, you know. And then they found a tumor in her stomach. Wow. There was 5 kg.
Wow, that's not a tumor. That's a baby watermelon.
So it was 5 kg.
That's a lot.
And they operated it out. And she still didn't tell us about this.
Oh, really?
No, she didn't.
Wow.
And then at some point, I talked with her like August, September, something like that, or October was her birthday, October 5th. And then she said that, like, I said, hey, should I ask Yule to join? And she's like, no, she didn't want Yule to join. And I thought, to have a fight or what's going on, like, blah. Right. But it turned out that, well, Yule was expecting a child. And my friend Anna, she was very compassionate all the time and always considerate and so altruistic. So she didn't want to worry Yule. She didn't want to put this on her, because both my mom and her mom have cancer.
Right.
So she was like, okay. She talked to me and I saw her, and then she told me that she got sick and she's not doing too well. And I saw her on video, and she lost like 10 kg, and the skin was hanging from her body, and her hair was fell off, but it started to regrow. And I talked to her, and I think we both cried, because it was so shocking to someone. Hey, let's see each other on Christmas to someone being really, really sick. And then I checked with her again a bit later in autumn, and she's like, oh, I haven't told Yule. I don't know how I should do this.
Oh, wow.
And then I told her, yeah, you should tell her. And she's like, oh, I don't know if there's ever a good time. And I'm like, there is not. Just tell her. Like, just tell her. And she didn't. And
never?
She didn't tell her. So her husband eventually, during Christmas, because the plan was to meet her on one of the Christmas days.
Okay.
And then I checked her up. Hey, are we still meeting? What's up?
Wow.
And she got admitted to the hospital on December 23rd because of too much pain.
Oh, wow.
Well, she planned to be at home. She planned to go with your family and celebrate Christmas the last time. Because apparently she got to know in November that this is not going anywhere.
Wow.
In a good direction. But I mean, I already lost hope when she told me that there are metastases.
Metastasized.
It had metastasized, but she didn't know that, and she didn't think so much about that. But I felt like, I think it's pretty bad. So her husband called and said, well, we're at the palliative unit, and I don't think it won't take long anymore. And I was so shocked. Like, I was so shocked.
Yeah.
Sorry. And he asked me to tell Yule.
No.
Because obviously I can't put it on Anna anymore, because it's like not okay to tell her, no, you gotta do it. No, and Daniel, he was like, and I totally understand. I mean, he probably called dozens of people.
Yeah.
And if I could just make it easier for him with one person, I would.
Did you tell her?
I tried to call her and she didn't pick up, and I was really desperate, so I called her mom. But I also have a contact with her mom. It's fine. And I was really I was crying, and she was just so, oh my gosh, and I don't know what to say, what to do. And I called her mom, and her mom, I think, was also really shocked. Really? Because her mom didn't know either that she was sick.
Wow.
And now I'm saying hey, we need to go to Anna. She's in the hospital. This is the last time we'll meet her.
Wow.
And and I mean, and then after all, I got a hold of Yule, and we both had cried, and we talked about it, and we and there was this whole drama around COVID, because you have to get a negative COVID test in order to get in. So I tested myself with a home test, and it was positive. So it was positive COVID test, and I'm like, I'm screwed. There's no way I can come in. And then I just, my brother actually suggested, why don't you take another one? But the chances of a COVID test to be wrong when it's positive is really, really low. Yeah. So it's like a pregnancy test. If it's positive, you're probably pregnant.
Wow.
And I'm like, okay, let's test another one.
I don't take this P test either, because I don't, I'm afraid of finding out the truth.
That you're pregnant.
Yeah.
So I tested again. It was negative. I'm like, dude, now it's 50-50. And then I took another one. It was negative again. And then I went to get a more official one for the hospital. And then I went. I took the test, and then I went. And Yule and me were really anxious because we didn't know. There's no one who prepares you. What do you say? What do you do? when you meet your friend who's dying, and this is the last time you're meeting them.
Hey, though. No, I don't think that you can prepare for that.
No, but yeah, I felt like and I felt like we're too young to this. Like we felt like we're too young for this.
Right.
We're not supposed to have to do this.
But
like
you
what's
guys
going
are
on?
quite old.
We're 31. At that point, we were all 31.
Wow, old. I was gonna say
Old suck.
hags.
No.
Okay, so you go to the hospital. You and Eula.
Yeah.
You guys went together to
Yeah.
see Anna.
So we met there. We met up with Daniel, her husband. He came down for a bit. So we took a walk, and he filled us in with some of the medical stuff and like the pre-story, like what happened and how did they decide I should stay at the hospital, because there was also an option to stay at home and get care there, blah, blah, stuff like that. And it was really interesting. And Daniel and me, we always had this kind of teasing relationship. We would always joke with each other and just like push each other down. But that's our way.
Wow.
But that's our way how we communicate and bond, you know.
Okay.
I even joked with him at the funeral, I'll tell you later.
Lynn.
But that's how we are. Okay. That's how we are. And the thing is, when we went to the hospital, she had a single room. Her husband had a bed next to her. It was really roomy, a lot of windows. And she was so tiny in that bed because she had lost so much weight already. She had a port for her,
For her medication.
Yeah, medication and all that. And also for food, she also had a food port because she couldn't eat because her stomach was removed.
Wow.
And I think the first, we said like, it was maybe 90% laughing. So we would just sit down as if we would in a cafe and just catch up. What happened to you? What did you do? What did we do like last time? Like we met and stuff like that. And then when we said, so Daniel left us for that. He went out and ate.
Right.
And I think that was his routine. Like when people came and visited, he would just leave. So he
had a
kept
chance to go take care of himself and
exactly.
breathe.
Just leave the situation for a bit. And then when he came back, I mean, I saw he was restless, you know. At some point he wants to go to bed too and stuff. Eula, she had really difficulties leaving the room. I was more like, go.
But you knew already that she was sick, and Eula didn't have as much time to prepare.
Yeah, Eula just like okay, she got to know today and we're going tomorrow.
Yeah.
So she didn't have a chance to process.
And if you know that's going to be your last time seeing someone, you may want to drag it out as much as possible. So.
Yeah, that was definitely her thing, and I don't blame her at all and stuff. But I mean, it was like when it was time, okay, let's go. It was like a switch. And we all started just bawling our eyes out and just crying and just proclaiming how good a friend she was. And
You're going to cry.
I'm going to cry.
It's okay. It's okay, Lynn. You really cared about her, and she was a good friend.
Yeah.
And it's okay.
I told her.
When we think about our friends who have passed away, the crying is part of the way that God helps us also to deal with that. And it's still not pretty new. I mean, it was just last weekend. So you're still in the grieving process too. So it's okay. And
I think it was still really surreal because we still had contact with her after we left.
Right.
And we were joking. Yeah, you let us know when it goes downhill. Like, I talked with her about like, what do you think? Are you going to heaven? Like, what's your relationship with God and Jesus and things like that? We talked about that, and because I know you guys in the church said it's really important. I'm like, yeah, it's really important. And I told you, my church wants me to say this, so I think it's really important.
I'm gonna say it not because I really care about you, but because my church is making you say it. Second her point.
But no, I did tell her. I hugged her. I told her like I really believe that. If you turn to Christ, we're going to meet again. It's really important. And I told her, like, and I felt like I did my bit. And the funeral really reflected that, though, which was, on one hand, a bit surprising, but also really comforting that they talked about, I think, 3 things that were so big in her life.
Right.
And they said it was faith, music, because she loved music and she played the piano, and compassion. Like she was such a fighter for all the disadvantaged, and she really cared, and she cared so much about people and overthought things so much, good and bad. So we left, and then I don't know, I came up with this idea that I asked her, could you record a reading of yours? Like, could you read something for our kids so we can preserve that?
Wow.
And she's like, yeah, I could do that. Let me think about it. And then she didn't really know what to read.
Right.
And then I gave a suggestion, the ever hungry caterpillar. I think it's called in English. And she read it. And we have the recordings. And at the funeral, so many people, her relatives, like asked, oh, I really would like that recording if we could have that too, because it's a memory of her voice.
Right.
She worked as a kindergarten teacher. She was like a specialist. So it's
really special.
Then, she was like a specialist in early childhood development, and she was studying to become a social worker.
Wow.
So she had like so much going on still in her life.
That's interesting, because I someone asked me at church today, and they're like, "Oh, what are these candles for?" I said, "Well, we light them when we remember someone who's passed away, and we pray to ask God to bring comfort to the people who are grieving that particular loss of life." I said, "But in our community, we never use them because no one's died yet."
No,
but that would be, I mean, say if it turned out that next year you had cancer.
Please don't say that.
Okay.
Can you say someone else?
You can't get cancer if I just say it. I can't create anything. I can't create bad luck for you or good luck. Otherwise,
you're not really Chinese.
No, today is not the right day. If you mention on this day, oh my gosh, those calendars.
Okay, if anyway. Someone dies, yeah.
I think that first grieving process for our community is going to be really tough. I was thinking about it. So when I worked here in the church before, there were a group of old people. They were old. I mean, they were old back then.
Yeah.
But they used to pray for the youth, and they used to pray for me.
Yeah.
And I always thought that was really special, even though many people were critical about us wanting to have a church that was open.
Yeah. They still prayed for you.
Yeah. And so recently, a lot of them have passed away, because now they're all in like their late 80s, 90s.
Yeah.
And a person just passed away, and she was 92 years old. 92 years old. And I was just thinking to myself, and it was so sudden. I just remember being really sad, and because not only because she's passing away, and I can't say I was sad like, oh, but there was a sadness. Oh, wow.
A sorrow, maybe.
Yeah, I was like, oh, she's not going to be praying for me now or something. At the same time, there's that hope, because she was a believer, and God was really important in her life. And it was so, that part of it, that comfort, when we know that we believe that people were genuine in their faith and really saved, and we know that we can see them again. And it's a hope that unsaved people don't have.
No.
But
I think it's very...
Yeah, I was just thinking that if you passed away, how sad I would be.
Okay, I hope you don't have to contemplate that. Kind of.
Well, and I was wondering, like, if I passed away, would you be sad?
Of course I would be, but I'd be like, finally he's at home.
Oh, wow. You better be crying in my own life. But if you don't run up to the casket and embrace it, I'm going to come back and haunt you.
Well, we talked with Anna, and we thought that she wanted to have an open casket, but at the end it was closed. Okay,
is it normal in Germany? Because it's normal here.
It's normal to be closed. Yeah. I don't think.
Yeah. The States, it's all open. You see, touch, kiss.
Ew.
People
do all kinds of things.
I see people try to climb into the casket. Okay. Oh, don't leave me! I can't live without you. I'm gonna follow you. I'm like, whoa! You don't know where that person's going. You don't want to follow. I think that it's really good for you to share this, because I think that it's easy when the person's 92. It's easier to sort of, okay, well, they lived a long life, 92.
Yeah, they did what I wanted to do.
Right,
probably.
exactly. And I think I shared about how the person was really nice to me, but also willing to correct me sometimes when they thought I did something wrong, but always with love. And so I've been so I'm thinking that, you know, when you share this about your experience and stuff like that, and being young, because I think when a younger person passes away, we think of it differently.
Yeah, we think of it more as it's a waste. It's like it's a tragedy.
Right.
It's something that's not supposed to happen, or it's not normal in a sense. Like everyone will die, but it's not. You're not supposed to die in the middle of life. And what really reflected that was how many people showed up at the funeral, and the span from a newborn to really old ladies in some wheelchairs. Like the whole spectrum was there. And it was not only relatives. It was like, because she was active like in kindergarten, and she was studying, and she was active in church, and she moved around, and she lived somewhere else before, and she also lived in Hungary for a student exchange. Like, there were like a lot of people there, like a lot of people. And I think the thing is, when I arrived at Yule's place, so I went there the day before the funeral because it was so early. So I was there, and Yule and me, we were like saying hi, and we were joking, laughing, because it felt like I was there for us to meet and just hang out.
Right.
It didn't feel like, oh, we're going to do something really, really hard. So we were joking with her boyfriend, and she just had a baby, and we were just having a good time. And then in the morning we were like, because we thought it would be an open casket, but it was not. And we first we were like, oh, we were not sure if we want to see that, you know, stuff. But said, okay, let's do it. And then as soon as we were approaching the church, like walking, I started crying.
Wow.
Just approaching the church already, because it just came over you like, this is for real. This is like. And then I saw people outside, and it was really strange because you don't know them, and you're going to church. And when I usually go to church, I'm not in a sorrow.
No, it's not like
mood.
Oh, I gotta go to church.
Yeah, but this one was like, it was really harsh. And then we went there, and it wasn't. I don't know. I went to one funeral before from a Vietnamese person, and they were like, you gotta be screaming like, like, oh, it's all like, my mom told me in Vietnam, you even have people, you even hire people to come cry on someone else's grave if you are not there.
But that's just like in the time of Jesus, they would hire professional mourners to wail and cry and put on a big display.
And I was like, so that was what I experienced once.
Yeah. Wow. And
then I went to this one. It was so subtle, and people would not make a sound or peep. It was so quiet. So and the whole church funeral service was so moving because it was so full of her. Like, I could really see how she chose all the songs. She chose everything, and it was really amazing to see. And you basically was sobbing anyway. But I was also happy because it was like kind of a Catholic one.
Yeah.
So I was happy. There were a lot of Catholics who were like, they knew when to stand, when to sit, when to do the cross and stuff. I'm like, okay, that's good that they are doing that. And then the thing was,
I should teach you guys so you guys know.
And the thing was, she was not buried next to that church, but to another graveyard.
Okay.
So I had a chance to meet up with some old classmates, and we reconnected because of this. It was amazing. So we went to this other graveyard, and it was because there were so many people. It took so long. Like, there were over 100 people.
Oh wow, that's a really large funeral.
It was. You cannot imagine. The church was so full.
Wow.
The whole graveyard was so full with people. And the thing is, I was thinking, because I was on a schedule, my flight would be going.
Right.
Either if I'm finished or not. And I was like, what can it take? I mean, so the service started at 10.
Yeah.
So, and the putting her into the grave was at 12.
Okay.
And I was thinking, okay, an hour. Yeah, should not be that long. But the thing is, even if you're like, if you only take 1 minute for 100 people, that's 100 minutes.
A lot of time.
And it was freezing cold. It was so cold. And obviously you were standing, you were not walking because you're
Yeah.
standing and waiting for everyone to go. And I think the most tragic moment, if you haven't cried before, there was the moment that everyone cried.
Oh, I bet.
And that was when her mom and her dad were at her casket by the grave, and it was so quiet. There wasn't even, you couldn't hear the cars, no birds, no nothing.
Wow.
And you could hear the mom cry.
I hate moms cry.
Yeah, you tell them, stop crying. It makes
No, but it's a special cry.
yeah.
When a mother loses their child. What I've noticed, all the funerals I've had, that's the one that's hard to. That's the one I can't professionally block it out. I can't put distance to it.
Block
that one
it out.
just goes just right in.
Yeah.
I get really touched by that. I'll start crying sometimes, just because a mom's tears, a mom's wailing. Last summer I did a funeral
For
Or
a
maybe it was-
child.
no, I
yeah.
guess it was 2 summers ago, maybe. Yeah, it must have been 2 summers. I can't remember. That was 2 summers ago. And I think the hardest thing was that coming to the grave, and her mom just went to the grave and just collapsed.
And cry.
And they actually had to pull her away. Like, she kept hugging the dirt and everything. Like, but we have to continue on. We can't do anything if you're in the way. She's like, I can't leave.
Yeah.
And this was a large one also. This was
Yeah.
like a couple of hundred people. It's like 350 people.
Oh my gosh.
So huge. And so just everyone's getting ready to say their goodbyes and everything. That took a long time. My voice was hoarse after singing Amazing Grace so many times. And then, and I think that when young people, like you said, when young people die, there's a lot of people that show up. More people than when maybe an older person dies.
Yeah, because I also said it's because they are still in the middle of life.
Yeah.
It's not because when you're usually when you're older, you don't usually make so many young friends who
No,
would
and
come.
most of your friends die. If
Yeah.
you live to be 80 or 90, most of
Yeah.
your friends are probably passed on.
So and then you have your family, and usually people don't have that large family anymore. But she was in the middle of life.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I think that was the hardest moment, I would say. And then I joked with Daniel, her husband,
Yeah.
that like, because Yul and me, we actually had to look up on the internet like how to behave at the funeral.
Wow.
What, like, should we bring flowers? Should we
Yeah.
not? Like, if you've never been to a funeral, how you're supposed to know? We are also protected from death.
Yeah.
It's not like, oh, I've been to a funeral since
I'm going to
kids.
start taking when I have funerals. I'm going to say, Lynn, sure.
But I mean, we didn't know anything, so
Yeah, you have to. And I think most funeral homes are really good about putting the information on their home pages about.
But that's a funeral
Yes.
home. We just got an invitation.
Yeah, but the
from
funeral home, I mean, so I don't know how it is in Germany, but
you mean?
so the mortician, the funeral company that actually is going to take care of the body, transport, and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
You go to in Sweden, you go to the homepage, and just about all of them will say, so this is proper attire, this is what you can do, this is what you can expect, da 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 da.
No, it's
So
just Google it.
Okay, so they really have really good information here, which is really helpful for people, because if that's your first time, you don't know.
Yeah, how are you supposed to know?
Yeah, so
I mean, we know you're not supposed to laugh and make jokes and stuff like that.
unless
They wanted to.
right,
They
So,
wanted
I mean,
you to.
I mean, sometimes people said, "Oh man, can't you lighten up?" Or say you have to tell me something about the person.
Yeah.
So sometimes as you're talking about people and people remembering, sometimes they just start laughing. 'Cause
Yeah,
this
that's
is like,
supposed to be like that.
or once, and I always tell people that, you should expect in a funeral, you might laugh, cry, and you might do none of the things. And all those 3 things are totally okay. And then I think the other thing is that it's hard to say ahead of time how you're going to grieve that day.
Yeah, no.
You might just, you don't even know when you're going to cry. It'll just happen.
Yeah.
You might cry a lot. You might cry a little.
You might not cry at all.
No. Had a young leader that died when I was, it was someone who I really, really, really liked a lot. She was just funny. She was one of those people like, you're like, oh, it's going to be so fun watching her grow up and become an adult. And she went on a trip with her mom, came back, got sick, died 2 days later.
What?
That was some kind of crazy disease they picked up
There.
overseas.
Yeah.
And
Oh my gosh.
that bothered us for such a long time that for probably 10 years, every time it came time for her death, we would just look at each other. And
You and who?
so me and
another
my
leader?
friend Camilla, I would
Yeah.
say. Sorry, Camilla, I'm naming you in this thing. So we were thinking about Emma. Her name was Emma. And for 10 years,
Wow.
all of us who knew her,
Yeah.
we just looked at each other. And we're like, today is that day.
Yeah.
And we would get quiet. We would start crying. Like, it took me a long time to get past that death. And then I've had several young people. A friend of mine, her name was Marie when I lived in Skellefteå. And these are not people I've known like as long as you knew Anna. But these are just people I knew for several years. But I felt like we were really good friends. Marie and I were really, really good friends. And when I moved down here, was first studying to be a priest. I almost quit because of that.
Because she passed?
Yeah, she was hit by a truck up in the north of Sweden. And just died instantly and stuff like that. And I was just so...
devastated.
Yeah, I was like really upset. I'm like, she just became a Christian.
Yeah.
She had just become a believer right before I moved from Skellefteå. We prayed together. She used to help me with stuff. And she's one of those people that still spoke English to me because she had studied in the States. And the sad part was like so I knew her mom and stuff. And this was their second kid that died.
Oh,
so the mom has lost all of her kids.
Oh, my
It just tore me up, and I'm like, I don't know if I really want to be a priest or not, but I had counseling and talked to one of the teachers, and I stayed, and I think that some deaths affect us more than others.
Definitely.
And I think in these cases we're talking about young people who have died, and I think that maybe that just gets in under the skin more. Maybe it's just harder to keep it at a distance. Maybe it's just because none of us really are thinking that a young person could die at any time. Even though this is reality for each and every one of us.
Yes, definitely. I mean, yeah. I think after Anna she had a really emotional connection to the sea, the Baltic Sea. So Germany has a coast on the Baltic Sea as well, and they used to go there for vacation stuff. And someone, I don't know who, brought a big hink, what do you say it in?
A bucket?
A bucket of sand from a beach on the Baltic Sea.
No.
Yes. So when we went to a grave, there was a big bowl of rose petals and that sand. So I asked Yula which one do you want to take. She's like, I don't care. I'm like, okay, I take the sand, you take the petals.
Wow.
So we did that. And her brother, who was a carpenter, crafted the cross for her grave.
Wow.
Dude. Her father is a cantor.
Wow.
So he was involved in the music and things like that. Her friends were playing at the funeral and also at the grave. Friends and family prepared the food after. And then when we walked back from the grave, we met her parents and we hugged them, and they appreciated so much that I made such a long way for this.
Oh yeah.
So that was, and I told her, because the crazy thing is her parents just lived a street away from where my parents live now.
Really? Wow,
yeah, because
really
my parents moved closer to my old school. So I asked her mom if I could come by next time I'm visiting my parents. She said, yes, please do. And and I was also a bit close with her sister because we had the same music teacher. So we know each other from there. And her sister, it's crazy. Her sister looks so much alike Anna. And somehow I felt like, on one hand, I felt like maybe it was good that Anna didn't have any kids yet. Right. But on the other hand, but then I felt like, we have nothing left of her somehow. Wow. But then I looked at her sister Felicitas, and then I felt like, no, we do. We do. They look very similar, even though they're not the same person at all. But they look very similar.
It's almost like still having like a part of her still there.
To remind us. And so what I was joking with Daniel, her husband, and I think it's overhuman what he was carrying at such a young age, because he was only 1 year older than we were. He was 32. Wow. He was going with her through all of this, the diagnosis and everything. And he was caring for her at home, administrating all the medication, putting a port in, like being awake at night to put her son for the food, and staying at a hospital and being there when she died, being there when she had like the worst, being there when she died.
True love.
I hope so, because I don't know who else would stick this out.
I don't know I don't think you could fake it that long, that much.
Yeah, because it's pretty intense.
I think it has to be true love.
And I know their marriage relationship was rough, like up and down a lot. But I think this was I just felt like what a human can do and accomplish. And I told them that I was really sorry it was lost, and I said that they did really well. I told the whole family that they did really well, and I'm really glad they made it through, and they did so well. Yeah. And I joked with Daniel because he disappeared for a while to eat something because he didn't eat anything in the morning.
Oh, wow. That's
so. But then I had a chance to talk with his parents, because why would I go talk with his parents otherwise? And it was really amazing. And then I joked with Daniel, Daniel, you should have worn like a red or like a neon colored hat, so we're easily identified. Because what struck me, I told Yula, it was so funny, like, why did everyone just look the same? Why are Germans always dressing the same? Because I felt like everyone looked the same, like I don't know who is who anymore. And he's like, definitely not. And I'm like, it would have been helpful. So we are on that basis, that even on it feels like the worst day of your life,
you guys are still
we
joking.
can still joke.
Yeah.
We can still be laughing, still joking.
Wow.
Yeah.
What do you think you've learned in this process?
That being an adult is hard. And I don't know. I would be just so concerned about my kids if I were to die now. That's what I pray for. That my kids don't have to grow up motherless.
I hope not either.
Yeah.
I think that a lot of people get really, sometimes it leaves a sore that can't be mended,
And I felt like, so in the past, maybe 6 months, 3 people I knew died.
Wow.
And before that, no one I knew died.
Yeah.
I had 2 grandparents who died, but I didn't have a relationship to them.
No.
I didn't know. But me and my cousin died in an accident. My colleague died in suicide. And now my friend died of disease. So I think that's pretty... Yeah, I just hope it's not a streak of death.
No, but we can't really control it or anything like that.
No.
And the older we get, I mean, and I used to always think like, what? Oh, that's not true. But it is true. The older you get, the more people around you that have died.
Yeah.
And I think it's, and it's scary,
And I felt like through this trip, I feel older. Like somehow like, okay, I was still living in my childhood, but now I feel like my childhood is gone, or there's a part of me that is gone.
Yeah.
Because I have been so protected from this, and now I had to face it. Yeah.
Wow. For all of our listeners out there, if you're going through a grieving process, and you find that it's weighing you down, you can't deal with it, you can't sleep at night, you feel restless, anxiety, and things like that, go get help.
Yeah, don't wait it out, because it might not go away.
Yeah, and if it's like here in Sweden, most churches have a sorrow group, so that people can share their sorrow and grief together, and in the group process, also have a chance to process their own sorrow. And then I think that we have to take back the discussion and let people know we all die.
Yeah.
It's a normal part of life. And before, in the industrial era, people didn't live that long. People had large families. People were
children died.
Yeah, people would have the bodies in the house, and other people would come by and visit to look at the body.
Yeah.
So I mean, there's all kinds of things from an earlier time when people were more prepared for death, and more prepared for death of young people. And I think we've lived with such soft, privileged lives.
Luxury.
Well, okay, I was trying to find a better word.
protected,
but they were
innocent,
protected.
yeah.
And so what happens is that it's still the old world stuff is still there, but in a totally new package.
Yeah, and we are not prepared to cope as well.
No, and most of us don't. We're too far removed from death. All right, well, keep writing, everyone. Lynn, thank you very much for sharing this. I think it's really for our listeners to hear, how we process some things like that. And maybe that can be of use to them. Don't forget, if you need help, seek help. If it's of a spiritual nature, contact your priest or pastor. All right, everyone. Thank you for listening, and
Thank you.
And have wherever you're at, if you're asleep or awake, we hope that you have a pleasant day.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening. If you have any comments or ideas, please send us a message to fikaforlife@mail.com. Fika, F-I-K-A. This was the Fika for Life podcast with Linh Nguyen and Edward Thomas, and we hope to hear you again.